Some buildings learn your routine. They wait for you in the darkness, counting your footsteps, memorizing your patterns. Marcus had cleaned the Meridian Building every night for exactly 1 year. 12 floors of corporate emptiness, each level identical in its sterile predictability. Beige carpets, white walls, fluorescent lights that hummed their eternal tune. He knew every office, every corner, every stain that wouldn't come out no matter how hard he scrubbed. The elevator doors slid open with their familiar whisper. Marcus wheeled his cart inside, muscle memory guiding his hand to the button panel. Second floor first, then work his way up. Always the same routine. Always the same. His finger stopped. There, below the button for floor 12, glowed a small circle marked 13. The brass was polished bright, as if freshly installed. Marcus stared at the button. He'd ridden this elevator hundreds of times. There was no 13th floor. The building stopped at 12. He was certain, wasn't he? He pressed 2 instead. The elevator lurched upward, cables singing their familiar song. But something felt different tonight. The ascent took longer. Or maybe it just seemed that way. The second floor opened to the usual maze of cubicles and conference rooms. Marcus pulled his cart forward, the wheels squeaking against the carpet. Everything looked normal. The water cooler stood in its corner. The motivational posters hung crooked on the walls. The emergency exit sign glowed red in the darkness. He began his routine. Empty the trash bins. Vacuum the common areas. Wipe down surfaces. Each task performed with the same methodical precision he developed over months of repetition. The building was silent, except for his movements and the ever-present hum of fluorescent lights. But as he worked, Marcus couldn't shake the image of that 13th floor button. It had looked so real, so normal, as if it belonged there, as if it had always been there. He finished the second floor faster than usual. Something about the space felt different tonight. The hallway seemed longer somehow, stretching further into shadows his cart's small light couldn't quite reach. The silence felt heavier, more expectant. Back in the elevator, his eyes went immediately to the button panel. The 13 was still there, still glowing softly in the dim light. Marcus reached out, his finger hovering just above the mysterious button. The brass felt warm, even from a distance. No, he was being ridiculous. Tired. It had been a long week, and his mind was playing tricks on him. Buildings didn't just grow new floors overnight. He'd ask building management about it tomorrow. There was probably a simple explanation. Maybe they'd added it for some reason, and just hadn't mentioned it to the night staff. But as the elevator carried him to the 3rd floor, Marcus couldn't stop glancing back at that button. In the brass reflection, he could swear he saw movement. Just for a moment. Just at the edge of his vision. Something was different about the Meridian Building tonight. By the time Marcus reached the 5th floor, he knew something was wrong. The layout was off. Subtle at first, a conference room where he remembered a supply closet, a hallway that seemed to bend slightly to the left instead of continuing straight. He told himself he was imagining things, but his body knew better. His hands had started to shake. The elevator had begun making stops he hadn't requested. He'd press 6 and arrive at 8, press 4 and find himself on 7. Each time, the doors would open to floors that looked almost right, but felt fundamentally wrong. The carpet pattern shifted. Door numbers were in different fonts. The emergency exit signs pointed in impossible directions. Worse, the floors he'd already cleaned were dirty again. Not just dusty, filled with the same trash, the same coffee rings on desks, the same scattered papers he'd already disposed of hours ago. It was as if the building was resetting itself, undoing his work as quickly as he completed it. Marcus stopped his cart in the middle of what should have been the 7th floor hallway. The space stretched longer than it should, disappearing into darkness that his small light couldn't penetrate. He counted his steps, 50 paces to reach what should have been the end of the hall. Last week, it had taken 20. His radio crackled, static mostly, but underneath the white noise, he could hear something that sounded like his own voice giving maintenance reports for floors that didn't exist. Floor 15, floor 18, floor 23. His voice, calm and professional, describing problems with ventilation systems in impossible spaces. The security monitor in the lobby elevator showed grainy footage of a figure in maintenance coveralls, him, working in areas he'd never seen before. Underground levels that stretched deep beneath the building's foundation. Upper floors that couldn't possibly exist in a 12-story structure. In every image, he looked tired but determined, going about his duties as if these phantom floors were perfectly normal. Marcus pressed the elevator call button. When the doors opened, he didn't step inside. He couldn't trust where it might take him. Instead, he watched the floor indicator lights above the doors. They flickered through numbers in sequence. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15? The lights continued climbing, displaying floors that shouldn't exist, before finally stopping at 27. The doors opened to emptiness. No elevator car, just a dark shaft that seemed to descend forever. His phone had no signal. The stairwell doors were locked from the inside. Somehow, as if the building didn't want him to leave through conventional means. The windows he'd cleaned 100 times before now looked out onto views he didn't recognize. Instead of the familiar cityscape, he saw other buildings, other windows, other figures in maintenance uniforms working late into the night. They all looked like him. Marcus backed away from the window, his cart wheels catching on carpet that hadn't been there moments before. The hallway was changing around him, walls shifting with movements so subtle they barely registered until it was too late to be certain what had moved. The building was alive. He could feel it breathing. The elevator came when Marcus called it, but not the same elevator. This one was larger, older, with brass fixtures that gleamed like gold in the fluorescent light. The button for the 13th floor pulsed with warm light, calling to him. He had no choice. Every stairwell door he tried was sealed. Every window looked out onto impossible vistas. The building wanted him to press that button, and he was tired of fighting it. The ride to the 13th floor felt like falling upward. His stomach dropped as the elevator climbed beyond where the building should have ended. Through the brass door's reflection, he watched himself growing pale, his eyes hollow with exhaustion he didn't remember accumulating. Floor 13 was a mirror floor 12, but wrong in every detail that mattered. The carpet was the same beige, but softer somehow, as if it had been walked on by thousands of feet over decades. The walls were the same white, but held a warmth that radiated outward like living skin. They pulsed gently, rhythmically, in time with something that might have been a heartbeat. Marcus touched the wall. It was warm. Alive. The surface gave slightly under pressure, like flesh over bone. He jerked his hand back, but the sensation lingered on his fingertips, the feeling of touching something that was touching him back. In the supply closet at the end of the hall, he found a maintenance log. His handwriting filled page after page, documenting repairs and cleaning schedules for floors that climbed high above the building's supposed limits. Date after date, month after month, year after year. His signature on timesheet after timesheet, marking overtime hours spent maintaining levels that existed in impossible spaces. According to the log, he'd been working here for 7 years. Not 1 year. 7 years of night shifts in a building that grew taller every time he wasn't paying attention. 7 years of cleaning floors that multiplied like cancer cells, spreading upward and downward into spaces that defied geometry. The entries were detailed, professional. They described his routine maintenance of ventilation systems in sub-basement, level 15, his weekly cleaning schedule for floors 40 through 50, his monthly reports on the heating issues in the building's impossible upper reaches that stretched toward a sky he'd never seen. But Marcus remembered being hired exactly 1 year ago. He remembered his first day, his orientation, learning the building's layout. 12 floors. Just 12 floors. The walls pulsed faster now, responding to his distress. The building was feeding on his confusion, his fear, his growing realization that he might not be who he thought he was. Or when he thought he was, His reflection in the supply closet mirror looked older than it should. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there this morning. His uniform looked worn, faded from years of washing. His hands were callous from work he didn't remember doing. The building breathed around him, walls expanding and contracting in slow, satisfied breaths. It had been keeping him, feeding on his routine, his dedication, his willingness to work alone in the dark hours when reality grew thin. It had been growing larger, fed by his labor, sustained by his presence, and he had been helping it, one floor at a time, one impossible night at a time. Marcus woke up in the lobby, slumped over his cart. Dawn light streamed through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold and normal. The elevator bank showed floors 1 through 12, just as it always had. No 13th floor button, no impossible brass fixtures, just the familiar, sterile efficiency of the Meridian Building. The day shift was arriving. Sarah from accounting waved at him as she badged through security. "Working late again, Marcus," she called. "You've got to get more sleep." He nodded, playing along, but something about her greeting felt rehearsed, like a line she'd delivered many times before. Like she expected to find him here every morning, exhausted and confused. Marcus gathered his supplies and headed for the maintenance room. His timesheet showed exactly 8 hours worked, a normal night shift with no overtime. But his body felt like he'd been working for days. His muscles ached. His hands were raw from chemicals and cleaning solutions. In the employee records office, he looked up his file. Hire date. Exactly 1 year ago. But the employment photo looked wrong. The man in the picture had his face but seemed older, more tired. The signature on his contract was his handwriting, but neater, more confident, as if signed by someone who'd been doing this job for much longer than a year. The building directory listed 12 floors of tenants, normal businesses with normal operations. But Marcus's key card, when he tested it, worked on floors that weren't listed anywhere. The elevator took him to a 14th floor that was under construction, to a basement level 6 that housed mechanical systems he'd never been trained to maintain. His supervisor, Janet, found him in the lobby around noon. "How'd the overnight go?" she asked, making notes on her clipboard. "Any issues with the upper levels?" Marcus stared at her. "Upper levels?" Janet looked up, concerned. "You feeling okay? You've been maintaining floors 15 through 25 for months now. The new construction contracts?" She showed him work orders in his handwriting. Service requests for spaces that didn't exist. Invoices for supplies delivered to impossible addresses within the building. All signed with his signature, all dated over the past several months. But Marcus remembered none of it. That evening, as his shift began, the building felt different again. Expectant. The elevator hummed with anticipation when he approached. The walls seemed to lean inward slightly, welcoming him back to work that extended far beyond what any building should contain. In his cart, he found tools he didn't remember packing. Specialized equipment for maintaining systems in spaces that operated under different rules than the normal world. His radio was preset to frequencies that reached security stations on floors that weren't supposed to exist. As the elevator doors closed, Marcus saw his reflection in the brass panel. The man looking back at him seemed familiar but distant, like seeing an old photograph of someone he used to know. Someone who'd been working in this building far longer than a year. Someone who'd helped it grow, one impossible night at a time. The 13th floor button wasn't glowing tonight. It didn't need to. Marcus already knew which floor he was going to visit first. He'd been maintaining it for years, after all, even if he couldn't remember.